2025, health damages caused by methane leakage during fracking operations is estimated to be up to $29 billion each year. While fracking has made the U.S. the #1 producer of oil and natural gas in the world, it has had devastating consequences to the environment, public health, and its effects have been very costly to U.S. taxpayers. Fracking, also called hydraulic fracturing, is a process of drilling horizontally and then sometimes vertically into the ground and then using high pressure to inject a mix of water, sand, and chemicals to extract oil and gas from deep in the earth. The pressure is used to access typically unreachable reserves from behind hard rock formations. Fracking operations may use up to 1,084 chemicals. Many of these chemicals are toxic, including methane, ethylene glycol, lead, and benzene, just to name a few. Because of the use of hazardous chemicals, fracking has had horrible effects on the environment in many ways, like water pollution, air pollution, soil contamination, habitat destruction, ecosystem disturbances, and global warming. Chemicals used in fracking contaminate our underground water, streams, rivers, and ultimately our oceans. This has had devastating effects on aquatic life, wildlife, and the environment. Wildlife habitats can also be disturbed by soil contamination. When chemicals are spilled or leak into the soil, it causes surrounding vegetation to die. It can take a long period of time for them to return, and even longer for them to flourish. The lack of vegetation further breaks down the economic system because it affects wildlife's food source supply and animals' homes. Since 2005, fracking in the U.S. has damaged more than 679,000 acres of land, and operations continue to expand across the country. Another concern is fracking consumes massive amounts of water. A fracking well can use up to 9.7 million gallons of water, putting a strain on the environment and further harming this delicate system. Between 2011 and 2016, there was a 770% increase in water use due to fracking in West Texas. This is an area that already struggles with drought. Fracking impacts our country's water supply by depleting water reserves. The impact of water supply goes beyond fracking areas because if water is not available, frackers will ship water from all across the country, millions of gallons. This depletes our water supply from rivers and lakes across the country. The emissions of methane into the air is a major contributor to global warming. Research shows that the U.S. oil and gas industry is responsible for at least 14 million metric tons of methane released every year. To give this some perspective, methane has 86 times more impact on global warming than carbon dioxide. The long-term effects of global warming has potential to deplete life on this planet altogether. So not only nature suffers from fracking, fracking also has negative health effects on American communities. Due to fracking sites' contribution to air, water, and soil pollution, unsuspecting citizens are at risk of a variety of health issues, including high-risk pregnancies, low birth weights, poor infant health, irritation to eyes, nose, and throat, asthma, other respiratory conditions, skin disorders, and migraine headaches. Unfortunately, long-term impacts are not yet known, but are thought to include cancers and degenerative diseases. The Yale School of Public Health identified 157 chemicals used in fracking as toxic, and 781 that have unknown toxic effects. EnvironmentAmerica.org reports that between 2005 and 2015, oil and gas wells used at least 5 billion pounds of hydraulic acid, which is a caustic acid, with repeated exposures that can cause permanent lung damage. They used at least 1.2 billion pounds of petroleum distillate They cause irritation to throats, lungs, and eyes, can cause dizziness and nausea, and can contain toxic cancer-causing agents. They additionally used at least 445 million pounds of methanol, which is suspected to cause birth defects. Fracking-related health issues are caused by exposure to chemicals through air, soil, and water. Contamination can happen various times throughout the fracking process. When airborne contaminants enter the air, they can be inhaled, causing the health issues we discussed earlier. When water and soil become contaminated by accidental spills on fracking site, there might also be leaks in piping or unretention ponds that hold contaminated water. Additionally, faulty disposal wells or the use of faulty disposal techniques can contaminate air, water, and soil as well. In Pennsylvania, there have been 260 confirmed private well contaminations due to fracking since 2005, but it is thought that there may be many more unconfirmed cases. Some water supplies become so contaminated with methane, faucet water can literally be lit on fire. So we've discussed the health concerns and damaging effects of chemicals being used during the fracking process. An additional issue is that naturally occurring radioactive materials may be brought to the surface and cause further contamination to our water supplies. Radioactive materials most prevalent during fracking are radium. Radium has been linked to serious illnesses like cancer and degenerative diseases that are many times life-threatening. So we've covered health issues caused by fracking. Let's think for a minute about the cost of these families accrue in medical bills. They also have loss of income from missing work when they are sick. This is not the only way that communities are financially burdened by consequences of fracking. Fracking also has had negative effects on local revenue because when farms and forest areas are converted into industrial sites, agriculture and gaming income is lost in those communities. It takes immense space to operate fracking facilities and store toxic waste. In 2005, fracking caused the collapse of the Wyoming mule deer and pronghorn habitats. Their population decreased by 56%. This caused a loss of income of $340 million a year in hunting and wildlife viewing revenues. Fracking also causes issues in public infrastructure. EnvironmentalAmerica.org found that the truck traffic needed to deliver water to a single fracking site causes as much damage to local roads as nearly 3.5 million car trips. As a result, road repairs in Texas and the Burnett Shale region costed $40 million. And in 2010, Pennsylvania estimated $265 million would be needed for road repairs in the Marcellus Shale region. This is coming directly out of taxpayer money. Now let's talk water. Because of the excessive amounts of water needed in fracking, new water infrastructures have needed to be built. The estimated cost is $400 million in Texas alone. This cost should be the oil company's responsibility, not taxpayers. While fracking has increased oil production, the repercussions to the health of our planet, citizens, and communities is just too high a price. Fracking is not worth the damage it costs to the ecosystems, water supply, health, and cost to local citizens and government. Consumers are the ones that can make energy alternatives a priority to protect our planet from fracking. I mean, what the frack are we doing here?